morning, all. Welcome to Announcements with the Kathy Gray Avatar. If you're with us on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to get notifications when we have new videos. If you're with us on Zoom, drop us a hi in the chat. We'd love to say hello back. And if you're with us in person, hello everybody here. And if this is your first visit, go ahead and sign the guest book, either in the lobby or at oakcliffuu.org/guest. Today, Renée Brill is back in our pulpit through the magic of modern technology. Her sermon topic is Objectivity. Is it actually possible to be neutral? And is that a good thing? We invite you to stick around after the service today, either for Talkback, where we gather in a circle and discuss the sermon and related topics, or for adult religious exploration with Sarah Rickey in person in the Charity Building and on Zoom. Also, the White Accountability Group meets today in the Hope Building and on Zoom at 12:15. This group offers white identifying folks a chance to work on themselves and to learn how to make changes in their behavior to become anti-racist, and to learn how to hold each other accountable, to stop causing harm and become true allies to people of color. The WAG group grew out of our Widening the Circle of Concern group, which meets every Monday at 3 p.m. on Zoom. If you'd like to help us on our path to becoming an anti-racist church, please consider joining. Because microaggressions are such a big thing, the Widening the Circle of Concern work group has begun developing a microaggression toolkit with the goal of giving folks the tools they need to respond to their mistakes in a constructive way. You're encouraged to check out the rough draft of this toolkit in the Widening the Circle group on channels in the Behavioral Covenant Project thread. Please give us your feedback at wcoc@oakcliffuu.org. And Teamwork Tuesday continues this week. There's always something to do, even if the weather's bad. Look at the great progress Stephanie is making on the playroom floor. Right, Stephanie? Please note that all this information can be found in your order of service and your weekly e-blast. Oh, back to things happening today. The worship ministry will be meeting at 2 p.m. in the Hope Common Room and on Zoom. Do you have ideas for a service? Want to help with planning or by participating in a service? All are welcome. Also, from 2 to 4 p.m. today, we have musicians and maybe singers in the house for Jazz Jam. Come play, sing, or listen. You're welcome to bring food and drink for yourself or to share, just nothing harder than beer or wine, please. And there is no charge for admission. Come enjoy some great music. That's it for now. Hope you all have a great Sunday.
Good morning. Welcome to the UU Church of Oak Cliff. Here we gather in a sanctuary where we are free to pursue our own unique and individual spiritual journey in an atmosphere of acceptance, compassion, and celebration. We seek to build a community where what you believe is less important than how your beliefs guide and inform your participation in the world. Ours is a community that values the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. We welcome you. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal, not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of love, compassion, and forgiveness.
Que esta luz que ahora encendemos nos inspire a usar nuestros dones y poderes para sanar y no para herir, para ayudar y no para impedir, para bendecir y no para maldecir, para servirte a ti, Espíritu de amor, compasión y perdón.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, come again, love. Come, yet again, come.
We make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person in the community has value. Each person's experience counts.
When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love.
We also share our joys with one another, knowing that joy comes into all our lives, knowing that joy calls unto joy, knowing that together our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration. Please share our joys publicly by posting them to the Zoom chat or send to those on our Facebook Messenger or speak them aloud. Our church is a covenantal church, Latin for come together. Covenant means a solemn agreement or promise from the heart regarding a course of action between parties. The practice of promising to walk together is the core of our faith. Simply put, it is a guide for behavior we expect from ourselves and each other. We are bound together by the promises we make to one another and recite the covenant during every worship service. Please rise and embody our spirit as we recite our covenant.
Because we love one another, we honor each individual's spiritual journey. Because we love one another, we celebrate life's abundance in service to each other, our community, and the world. Because we love one another, we connect with each other in love, respect, and acceptance. Thus do we covenant together. And now in Spanish. Porque nos amamos una al otro. Porque nos amamos una al otro, honoramos el viaje espiritual de cada individuo. Porque nos amamos una al otro, Celebramos la abundancia de la vida en el servicio a entre sí, nuestra comunidad y el mundo. Porque nos amamos una al otro, ponemos en contacto a unos con otros en el amor, respeto y excepción. Así que hacemos pacto.
Good morning. I would like to invite you to take a moment with me this morning and close your eyes. And let's center ourselves and take a deep breath in and breathe out. And breathe in and out. And if you find that there is a place in your body where you are holding stress or tension, take a moment to do what you need to let that go. You might need to stretch, change your position a little bit. I normally carry my stress in my shoulders. So sometimes some shoulder shrugs really help with that. And take a couple deep breaths. And when you're ready, come back to the space where we gather this morning. This morning, I am having some big feelings, and actually, it's evening when I'm recording this. I'm having some big feelings this evening. My tiny little baby did his first little army crawl forward today, which is a moment I've been waiting for with great excitement for what feels like a long time, even though it's not. And in that moment that he figured things out for himself, I felt like all of a sudden he might as well be graduating from college already. It was like being thrown forward in time. And for the last few months, as many new parents are probably told, very many people have been telling me to enjoy this time while it lasts, and it just flies by. And when I was struggling to make it every single day with no sleep, and early on when I couldn't even comfort him because he felt so bad and he was having a hard time eating, I never thought. It felt like we would never make it this far. I didn't know if I could do it. And those two feelings, that time is standing still and that time is just leaping forward, or that I'm just surviving from day to day, or I'm holding on to every precious moment. Those feelings both have truth in them. They might not be objectively true, but they have truth in them. And this morning, what we're talking about is objectivity and how that can support white supremacy culture. Objectivity is something that we often think is good. We're often told that emotions cloud our decision-making process, that our biases are going to cloud our decision, and that we need to be as rational as possible to make good decisions. And that can feel true sometimes. That's probably true. However, there are times, many times even, where we really need our emotions to make good decisions. They're telling us something that is true. And as humans, we are actually not capable of being unbiased or neutral and objective. Normally, the people who think that they are objective, what is really true is that they are the persons or part of the group that gets to decide what the neutral, normal position is, or the normal perspective. Traditionally, white heterosexual men in our society, and everyone else is too biased or too emotional. And that downplaying of emotion as a way of knowing, and even something that reduces us to our animal selves, right? There's this huge bias against emotional knowing and learning and knowledge. But if we are devoid of emotion, especially devoid of emotion for others, that's actually deeply problematic and harmful, right? That's narcissistic behavior. That's sociopathic behavior. And so demanding that people dismiss their emotional capacity and emotional knowing is fundamentally dehumanizing. It fundamentally cuts us from very important parts of what it means to be human and why we do the things that we do. In our article, Tema Okun says that objectivity shows up in the following ways: the belief that there's such a thing as being objective or neutral, the belief that emotions are inherently destructive, irrational, and should not play a role in decision-making or group processes, assigning value to rational while invalidating or shaming the emotional, when often, if not always, the rational is emotion wrapped up in fancy language and fancy logic. I think we've all seen some version of that dialogue in our forays around the internet. It requires people to think in a linear or logical fashion while ignoring or invalidating and shaming those who think in other ways. Lateral thinking is actually an extraordinarily useful problem-solving tool. Impatience with any thinking that does not appear logical or rational in ways that reinforce existing power structures. In other words, those in power are allowed to be illogical, angry, and emotional without being disregarded, while those without power must always present from a rational position. Refusal to acknowledge the ways in which logical thinking or decision-making is often a cover for personal emotions or agendas based in the fear of losing power, faith, or comfort, and refusal to acknowledge the ways in which objectivity is used to protect power and the status quo. So what does that look like in practice? That might mean the ways that people would say that trans people are not the best arbiters of what their life experience is, and they shouldn't be involved or controlling of the conversations about what their lives are and what their rights are and what their future should be, because their experience makes them biased. And so we, as the non-biased people, should be allowed to make those decisions. It shows up in ways where we expect the people who have been harmed and oppressed, particularly people of color, to be as polite or guarded and coached and professional and respectable in their language while they are pointing out their oppression to the oppressors. Essentially expecting people who are in a struggle for their very lives to do the emotional labor of making us feel safe, talking about how they are struggling for their lives. It's kind of infuriating, to be honest with you. And that kind of anger is motivating. That kind of holy, righteous indignation that something is unfair actually gets things done. I think that what normally happens when we're objective and neutral and a third party is that, for one, we often don't have all of the information we need in order to make a good decision or a good recommendation. We're not living that life, and so we might come up with solutions that require resources that a given community doesn't actually have, or solutions that would cause more harm than good. And secondly, people who are not experiencing that particular problem often talk about things as deeply important and sacred and precious as human rights, as though it's little more than an intellectual toy. If you don't have the stakes in the games, it might feel more like a game, be treated more like a game, more willing to argue and play devil's advocate and entertain ideas that are deeply harmful in the lived experiences of people who experience oppression. So the truth is that, honestly, most of the successful civil rights movements and successful movements for progressive change are led not by the people who are neutral third parties. It's led by the people who need it because their lives depend on it. And this insistence in objectivity is really a way of maintaining the status quo of who is in power, who is listened to, and who is valued. Now, the antidotes that Tema Okun give us are to realize that everybody has a worldview, and the worldview affects the way we understand the world. Realize that this is true for you. You are not objective. You are steeped in your own worldview, and if it is the dominant view, realize how that worldview includes the belief that it has the capacity to be projective. If yours is the dominant worldview, you've gotten to define what objective means. Support yourself and your group in sitting with discomfort when people are expressing themselves in ways which are not familiar to you. Support yourself and your group to sit with discomfort when people are sharing points of view or lived experiences that are not familiar with you. Understand that emotional intelligence is both real and valuable. Work to become more emotionally intelligent. I would add to this that unlike your IQ, your EQ or emotional intelligence is one you can actively increase throughout your lifetime and is shown to be the better marker of success than IQ. Assume that everyone has a good reason for what they are feeling, and that your job is to understand that reason and how it connects to that position, particularly if you are the one with more formal or informal power. Ask yourself and or the group what a situation might look like from the point of view of those who are not present, or even better yet, develop authentic relationships with those whose worldview and or experience could and will inform your own worldview. Engage in the simple act of using I statements, which lead us to claim our own experience rather than generalizing from our experience in ways that can exclude those who have a different perspective from you. And lastly, get curious about sources of information and stories, both to ensure that those who are often overlooked as sources get lifted up and recognized, and also to ensure that those who claim credit are grounded in lived experience and social justice values. So, I hope that we take the time to honor our own feelings this week and where we are right now. What are they telling you? How can you hear another when they say that you are causing harm, even if you didn't mean to? How can you expose yourself to other points of view and remind yourself that you as a human are not objective? And that's not necessarily a bad thing if we think about it, name it, and account for it. Knowing where we stand and what has made us who we are, that's the real power that helps us to go where we want to go. I hope you have a beautiful week. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
Join me in reciting the Widening the Circle of Concern Covenant. We, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Oak Cliff, commit ourselves to the study and dismantling of racism and oppression within our congregation. We commit our congregation and ourselves to the work of anti-racism and anti-oppression. We commit ourselves to listening, to learning, and to action. When we fail, we commit ourselves to trying again and again. We covenant to begin this work and to continue until all of us can truly say that we are a beloved community of justice, equity, and compassion. Thank you.
I'm Sherry Randall, and what I'm going to be reading are the words of someone else. I am going to be reading words by Aisha Ansano. Reverend Ansano believes in the spirituality of food, the power of community, and the importance of self-care. She is the affiliated community minister at First Parish in Malden, Massachusetts, and co-founder of the dinner church consultancy Nourish. This piece is called Visitors in the Struggle for Racial Justice. And before I start reading, just an audio description. The author, as you can see, is a woman of color. I am a middle-aged, that was generous. I'm a white woman of age. Anyway, so these are Reverend Ansano's words. No matter what tactics and methods racial justice activists use, the general response of society will be a collective head-shaking and tisk-tisking. Because what people are actually complaining about are not the specific tactics that are being used in the struggle for racial justice, but that the struggle for racial justice exists at all. I imagine, says Reverend Ansano, that for most people, the immediate reaction to that statement is defensiveness. I really don't think that the struggle for racial justice shouldn't exist, some might respond. I just think there are better ways to go about it than blocking traffic and making me late for work. I get annoyed and frustrated, and it really doesn't convince me to join your fight. What exactly is going to convince that person to join the fight? Picket signs on the side of the road? Then they'll just think, look at those troublemakers disturbing the peace over there as they drive on their way to work. Then they'll promptly forget about it. It's not the specific methods that are making people uncomfortable. It's the fact that the struggle for racial justice is seeping into their awareness in ways that they can't ignore. Think about it in terms of this metaphor. You're visiting a foreign country where the customs are very different from what you are used to, and the language is different, and some of the things they do are not only different, but make you feel deeply uncomfortable. As a guest in that country, it is not for you to say that the things that people who live there are doing are wrong. Instead, your role is to learn, to pay attention, and try to understand how things work, and to adapt. But if you do something that goes against their norms, it's also your role as a guest to not insist that they let you do things however you want to do them. It is your role as a guest to pause and consider what you're doing. White people tend to be visitors to the struggle for racial justice, ones that aren't forced to be there, but can choose to come in and leave whenever they like. People of color reside in the struggle for racial justice by virtue of their race. As people who are constantly in the struggle, people of color have the right to make claims on what they find okay and not okay, and what they see as helpful and not helpful. Thank you.
It's that time. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place that is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Members, if you are contributing cash towards your pledge, please use the envelope provided and write your name on it. To text your donation, see the number on your order of service. For more options, see www.oakcliffuu.org/donate.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy.
Deeper by Amanda Littis Kessler. We would go deeper.
We would become the selves we cannot even imagine today.
We would become courageous.
We would grow to the light in congregations filled with different perspectives.
We would know unutterable joy.
We would be filled with gratitude.
May we go deeper.
May our time together open our hearts and sharpen our minds.
May our learning know no end.
May we find the sacred within and around us.
May we see the beauty in each other's faces.
May we find our way to the depth of our being and dare to know holiness.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez.
Thank you all for coming.